One swallowed whistle, just one could vaporize the billion-dollar surge. Caitlin Clark has brought to the WNBA Economists peg her at 26.5% of all league money in 2024, and project she pumped nearly $1 billion into this season alone. We got a taste of what's at stake the night she returned from injury. ABC's Fever Liberty broadcast averaged 2.2 million viewers and spiked to 2.8 million, outdrawing the men's Stanley Cup on cable. FrontOfficeSports.com when she sat for 5 games. National ratings cratered 55%. HOOPSHYPE.com, those numbers aren't just big, they're existential. Yet behind closed doors, coaches admit they're telling players to be as physical as possible, because 80+% of the time, the refs let it ride. Rebecca Lobo says every coach she's spoken to agrees the whistle has vanished, and consistency has to get better. So here's the open secret: if the next elbow, eye gouge, or hip check knocks Clark out again, the league's record crowds, soaring jersey sales, and upcoming TV deal all teeter on that silent whistle. Ready to see how close the WNBA is to the brink? Keep watching, because the clock is already ticking. June 17th at Gainbridge Fieldhouse should have been just another regular season grind. Instead, it morphed into a livewire cautionary tale. The Fever led the Sun by a bucket when rookie guard J.C. Sheldon raked a thumb across Caitlin Clark's eye, sending the league's headline act blinking away tears. Seconds later, Marina Mabrey lowered her shoulder and flattened Clark to the hardwood. Fans gasped. Play-by-play crews assumed an ejection was coming. Nothing, only matching technicals for Clark, Mabrey, and veteran Tina Charles. The ignited social feeds. And by morning, the league's own review panel quietly upgraded Mabrey's shove to a flagrant 2-2 late to matter on the scoreboard. But a public admission that the refs had lost control. Even that fix came with collateral damage. Sophie Cunningham's retaliatory foul in the final minute drew a $400 fine, turning her into an overnight enforcer, folk hero among Clark's followers. Inside the press room, Fever coach Stephanie White could barely mask her fury. "Everybody's getting better, except the officials," she snapped, pointing to a -31 free throw gap over 3 games and warning the league that the meltdown had been telegraphed from the opening tip. "We knew this was going to happen," White said. "You could see it coming. That perfect storm, an eye gouge, a body check, and a swallowed whistle broadcast a brutal message. If the refs can't protect the face of the league, someone else will try, and chaos will follow." But the scariest part isn't what happened. It's what could happen next if that whistle stays silent. Because the real numbers, the ratings, the revenue, the billion-dollar upside are about to collide with an officiating system still stuck in first gear. And the fallout is bigger than one box score. The numbers nobody can ignore. Take Caitlin Clark off the floor, and the graphs nosedive like a roller coaster that lost its track. During her 5-game injury break, national WNBA telecasts shed 55% of their audience, while Indiana's own broadcasts crashed from 1.8 million viewers to just 847K. TheBigLead.com the very instant she came back. ABC's Fever Liberty Showdown averaged 2.2 million and peaked at 2.8 million, eclipsing this season's Stanley Cup cable average and ranking as the 3rd most watched WNBA game ever on the network. FrontOfficeSports.com, ESPN.com follow the money trail, and the stakes only climb. A finance study from Indiana University shows Clark generated 26.5% of all league economic activity in 2024 and is on pace to pour nearly $1 billion into the WNBA ecosystem this season through tickets, merchandise, and ad revenue. C.com, that means every minute she's in uniform is worth real, countable dollars, and every minute she isn't feels like someone just yanked the plug on the league's cash register. No other athlete in modern pro sports carries that kind of leverage. And here's the kicker: the ref's whistle is now the single, fragile thread holding that billion-dollar boom in place. Because if the league can't turn ratings gold into on-court protection, coaches will keep gaming the system, and the numbers you just saw will be the first casualties. Up next, the insiders who admit they're telling their rosters to push the line until the whistle finally blows. Coaches and players revolt behind the cameras. A quiet consensus has hardened: if the refs won't police it, we'll do it ourselves. Rebecca Lobo says every single coach she's spoken with is preaching maximum contact because they know the whistle shows up only 2 minutes out of 40. In other words, the league's own strategists are openly gaming an officiating system they no longer trust. Indiana's Stephanie White turned that distrust into a public indictment after the Fever Liberty fiasco, ripping a -31 free throw gap over 3 games and calling the trend pretty unbelievable. The league fined her, but the fine only amplified her point. If a head coach has to pay to be heard, something is badly off balance. Essentially, Las Vegas boss Becky Hammon is just as blunt. Asked how to slow Clark, she shrugged. "You have to be physical, or she'll cook you for dinner." Translation: rough her up until an official finally objects. Veterans like Aja Wilson and Brittany Griner echo the warning. calling the game outdated and harmful after a spate of headshots and ankle rolls league-wide. Players feel it every night. When refs laugh off complaints about twisted landings or hacked wrists, frustration morphs into retaliation. And enforcers, hello, Sophie Cunningham earn Coltiro status for doling out payback. The code now reads, protect your star or lose her. But turning the court into a self-policed frontier solves nothing. It only ups the odds of a season-ending injury that would gut the league's momentum in one sickening thud. And that leads to the real fault line. The WNBA's part-time, underfunded officiating system that was never built for million viewer spotlights. In the next section, we'll crack open exactly why the infrastructure can't keep up, and how every swallowed whistle pushes the league closer to disaster. Cracks in the ref foundation. The WNBA's athletes have never been faster, stronger, or more visibly. The league still relies on a rotating crew of part-time officials who moonlight in college gyms all winter and squeeze a condensed training camp into a single long weekend every spring. That mismatch shows up every night. The pace is NBA quick, but the whistle still moves at 2010 speed, unlike their NBA counterparts who earn six-figure salaries, study film year-round, and huddle with the centralized replay bunker. WNBA refs fly city to SAT on commercial flights, pocket a Pergam check, and handle video reviews entirely on the floor. No last 2-minute report gets published, so blown calls vanish into the fog, breeding conspiracy theories in a growing sense that accountability simply doesn't exist. The timing couldn't be worse. Next season's expansion to 16 teams and a 44-game slate means even more possessions to police and more national broadcasts to scrutinize every missed elbow. League brass quietly floated the idea of full-time officials and a dedicated replay hub, but no rollout date or budget line has surfaced. Meanwhile, coaches have already adjusted. If the ref crew is juggling travel fatigue, limited prep, and playoff-level intensity, that crew will miss contact on the weak side or swallow the whistle on a late clock drive. Players sense it within the first 5 minutes, and the game spirals into a survival contest long before halftime. The result is baked-in volatility. One night you get a slow whistle that lets defenders maul guards off the ball. The next you get a touch foul parade that turns the lane into a free throw factory. Consistency dies, frustration soars, and safety becomes the first casualty. Which brings us to the looming danger everyone feels but no one wants to voice out loud. How many more improvised enforcers and revenge hacks can the league absorb before a superstar's season ends on a stretcher? The answer lives in the next collision where the human body meets an officiating system still running on borrowed time. Safety alarm bells. Caitlin Clark already missed 5 games this season with a deep thigh bruiser freak collision that looked routine until the swelling ballooned overnight. The league held its breath. Ratings slid, and executives whispered, the same fear, what if next time she doesn't bounce back? They didn't have to wait long for another scare. 2 nights after Clark returned MVP, frontrunner Aja Wilson caught an inadvertent elbow to the temple, staggered to the bench, and entered concussion protocol. 1 star down changes a matchup. 2 stars down changes an entire broadcast schedule, and it isn't just the headliners. Sabrina Ionescu rolled an ankle on a hip check that went unwhistled. Brittany Griner landed on a shooter's foot and limped to post-game interviews in a walking boot. Natasha Cloud, sick of pleading her case, tells reporters that refs actually laugh when she points out hand-checking that's turning into outright arm bars. The pattern is undeniable. Rising viewership has arrived faster than adequate protection, and the injury list is growing like a grim scoreboard. Coaches feel the tension in every pre-game walkthrough. Trainers tape, ankles higher, players pop ibuprofen by halftime. Everyone knows that one more reckless swipe, one more eye gouge, hip check, or late-game shove could snatch the league's golden hour right off the court. The only question now is who steps in first, the officials, or the players determined to police the floor themselves. Next up, the unofficial enforcers. The viral follower counts they earn overnight, and the dangerous new code that says, protect our star by any means necessary. Enter the vigilantes the night Marina Mabrey leveled Clark. Something snapped not just in fans but in the locker rooms. Sophie Cunningham stepped in with a hard, clean pick later that quarter, a silent promise that cheap shots would now carry a price. By sunrise, her social feeds exploded. 1 million new followers in 48 hours. Tens of thousands of comments reading, "Protect the Queen," and "Where can I buy your jersey?" A brand new enforcer was born, and the blueprint was set. Across the league, coaches started sketching contingency plans. Assign a bruiser, guard the guard. Stars who never fancied themselves bodyguards suddenly embraced the role because fans rewarded tan because the refs won't. Rookie contracts hang in the balance. Endorsement deals do too. Every shove that keeps Clark upright feels like job security wrapped in applause. But this arms race has a dark math. More vigilantes mean more collisions, more elbows thrown on plays that used to be routine. The crowd roars, highlight reels spin, Yet every retaliatory foul is another chance for knees to buckle or heads to whip back against the hardwood. One trainer likened it to patting a fuse with dynamite to buy a little time, but the blast grows bigger. Still, the code is spreading. Players talk about it in tunnel huddles. We handle ours. They're tired of pleading for whistles that never come. And the league's most bankable face now walks the court, flanked by unofficial bodyguards in sneakers and ponytails. And that's triggering a second backlash, one pointed straight at the commissioner's office. Whispers of favoritism, payoffs, and leadership shakeups now circulate in DMs and group chats, threatening to erode trust faster than any blown call. Because when the game feels rigged, whether by refs or by next fight moves from the paint to the front office. And that confrontation is coming sooner than anyone wants to admit. Ultimatum, at the final buzzer, this is the fork in the road. No replays, no do-overs. Either the WNBA builds a world-class officiating unit right now, or it gambles its billion-dollar future on the next swallowed whistle. Players have drawn their line in the hardwood, publish every discipline report, hire full-time refs, or brace for a public fight that could freeze negotiations, hollow out sponsors, and shove highlight reels back into cable obscurity. Insiders say 2 proposals sit on the commissioner's desk. One costs money: year-round ref contracts, a centralized replay bunker, a league-wide safety czar with veto power over every crew assignment. The other costs everything: another marquee talent writhing on the baseline, while the broadcast cuts to commercial and fans log off in real time. The choice looks simple until you remember budgets don't scream. But social feeds do on. Silence is already screaming loud enough to drown out tip-off. So where do we go from here? Picture the next Fever possession. Clark comes off a high screen, shoulder checked, midair. The whistle shrieks, the ref signals a flagrant, and the crowd roars, not just because Indiana gets 2 shots in the ball, but because the league finally blinked first. Or, imagine the same play. No call. Clark bangs the floor in pain, and millions change the channel before the 4th quarter starts. That's the razor edge. We're skating on one blast of air through a metal whistle. Which ending do you want? Because if you're still watching, you aren't just a spectator anymore. Your clicks, your jerseys, your posts decide whether women's basketball leaps into its golden era or tumbles back into niche trivia. Drop your verdict in the comments. Share this story, and keep your eyes on the next game. The whistle will blow one way or another, and when it does, you'll know if the W chose progress or rolled the dice on disaster. Beyond the buzzer, so here we are. One league, one whistle, and one player whose every dribble now echoes like a countdown clock. We've seen how a single missed call can spark a riot of rumors, how a lone enforcer can rewrite the code of the court, and how the numbers surge or sink on Caitlin Clark's heartbeat. Officiating isn't just a rulebook problem anymore, it's the fuse that runs beneath every ticket sale, sponsorship deal, and highlight clip you share. If the WNBA chooses the costly fixed full-time refs, transparent reports, airtight basketball could explode into its long-promised golden era, bigger than any skeptic ever imagined. If it hesitates, the next silent whistle might not simply sideline a superstar. It could bench the league's entire momentum. So ask yourself, when the ball tips off tomorrow night, which version of the future are you rooting for? The one where a clear, confident whistle protects the game we love, or the one where we all hold our breath, praying the next collision isn't the last straw? Drop your prediction below and keep those alerts on. The next possession may decide everything.